At the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to a young dude named Bong. Bong is really talented at cooking and is the youngest chef at Blue House, which is the official home of the Prime Minister of South Korea. That evening, Bong learns that the house is throwing a dinner party for a Chinese ambassador. The ambassador is super sensitive to fish bones, so Bong is told to prepare a tasty fish dish without any bones. Bong follows their instructions and immediately starts preparing the dish. At nighttime, the dinner is ready and served to the ambassador. Unfortunately, as soon as the envoy takes a bite of the fish, he finds a hook in it. This puts Bong in a serious jam as several guards search the mansion. To find him, in the next scene, a pair of police officers investigating the incident show up at Bong's apartment and knock on his door. Bong knows he's in hot water, so he tries to escape through the balcony while the officers try their hardest to catch him. In the process, Bong accidentally plunges into a pool below, smacking his head on the bottom of the pool for some strange reason, and he keeps falling as a woman swims towards him and plants a kiss on his lips. When Bong wakes up, he finds himself on a weird bed in an even weirder room. Bong feels like something ain't right and immediately rushes to a nearby mirror. His reflection surprises him as Bong discovers that he has become a woman. He thinks for a second but finalizes that he must be dreaming due to the fall. Bong sneaks out of the room to figure out what's happening but finds dozens of women outside who bow and refer to her as Your Highness. Surprised by this, Bong runs outside the building but suddenly feels cold down there. This is when Bong realizes that she has lost her banana. Bong is horrified by this and initially believes that she's been trafficked into a sex change operation. However, when she looks around, Bong discovers that she time-traveled to the past. The realization causes her to go into shock and she's eventually brought back to the palace. The next day, Bong wakes up and learns her current identity from a maid. It turns out that she time-traveled to the Joseon dynasty in the year 1851. Moreover, she now lives inside the body of Kim So-young, a royal ward. To make matters worse, Bong discovers that Kim is scheduled to marry King Kol-jong and to become queen in the next few days. The maid also explains that her body was found floating on a lake after an unknown accident happened. Luckily, the guard found her and brought her back to the palace. Hearing this, Bong theorizes that both him and Kim's spirits must have switched and infers that the ticket back home is the lake. Bong asks the maid to lead him to the lake as he plans to jump in and return to the present. Sadly, her plan to jump takes an unexpected turn as she lands on muddy ground. It turns out that the Grand Queen ordered the palace servants to drain the lake overnight to prevent anyone from falling into the water again. Bong is bummed by the news but still reckons that water is the answer, so she desperately tries to submerge herself in any water source she can find. She even goes as far as sticking her head in a bucket of water that is used to clean the floors. However, all her efforts are fruitless. A few days later, the wedding day arrives. Bong is clueless about the dynasty's customs but with the help of her handmaids, manages to complete the required wedding rituals. That night, Bong, who is now queen, is invited to the king's chambers to sleep with him. Bong is horrified by the thought and offers the king some booze in hopes of him passing out. Fortunately, the king falls to sleep, much to Bong's relief. The following day, Bong wakes up with a hangover and is offered some grub. However, she is disgusted by the soggy meal and passes a message to the royal chef to cook ramen instead. The chef is confused by the term but tries to make the foreign meal based on Bong's instruction. The chef tries multiple times to make the dish but Bong is dissatisfied with every attempt. The first dish is too healthy while the next dishes are too bland and spicy. Eventually, the chef becomes upset and gives up, asking Bong to cook it herself. Bong, who still remembers her culinary skills, decides to prepare the dish herself, which is pretty nice because she could have had that cook killed for that lip. Bong enters the royal kitchen and immediately picks up a knife. Her assistant is worried because the queen has never tried to cook since her childhood. Hence, the helper alongside the other servants expects her to make a mess of the kitchen. However, Bong starts chopping the veggies with great speed and precision, much to the servant's surprise. She cuts everything perfectly and at the right size, ultimately cooking a perfect dish. Bong takes the ramen back to her chambers and enjoys the meal with her right-hand helper. Back at the kitchen, the chef is jealous of Bong's cooking abilities and proposes that the food simply looks good but doesn't taste nice. To test his theory, the royal chef tries the leftovers remaining in the pot. However, as soon as he has a bite, he is amazed at how good it is, so much so that he even drops his damn spoon, totally stunned by the foreign deliciousness. Bong suddenly comes up with an idea. The new queen realizes that she can easily win over the royal family with her culinary skills. The lake was drained by the Grand Queen, so if Bong can please her with some grub, she might agree to refill the lake. Bong instantly returns to the kitchen, but the jealous royal chef asserts his authority and refuses to let her inspect the food being served to the Grand Queen. Bong is pissed at this and challenges him to a speed cooking contest. The royal chef initially backs out from the fight but accepts the challenge after Bong teases him. A servant rings a bell and the contest begins. The head chef takes his knife and viciously cuts a bunch of carrots. However, the queen's hands are faster and quickly cut some cucumbers with ease. After several minutes of cooking, Bong's dish is ready, and she is the first to ring the bell, thus winning the contest. The royal chef is upset and argues that though speed is important, taste is the ultimate test of a chef. Feeling confident, Bong agrees and requests the royal food inspector to taste both dishes to see which one is better. The inspector is fascinated by Bong's grub and declares it as the superior dish, prompting her to take charge of the royal kitchen. Bong uses her newly gained status to her advantage as she analyzes the Grand Queen's meals. Bong discovers from her food choices that the Grand Queen is a picky eater due to her recent toothache issues. Thus, Bong decides to make a soft-textured meal for the aristocrat lady. Bong gets to work right away and begins making a potato porridge. First, she pours some milk into the pot and adds the right ingredients as she occasionally tastes the mixture. Then, the potatoes are eventually added to the pot, after which the dinner is served with some flour toppings for a cohesive presentation. Bong is pleased with the final product and delivers it to the Grand Queen herself. The Queen greatly enjoys the meal but highlights that the dish is not perfect as it arrived cold. The temperature change is caused by the perfectly mashed potatoes clumping, hence slightly altering the taste. Also, the porridge spilled on the sides of the plate also affected the presentation. Bong is distraught to hear this and sadly begins her trip back to the palace. While in her carriage, Bong brainstorms on alternative ways of delivering food to the Grand Queen. Shortly after, she comes up with a stellar idea. Bong sews a cloth and has her helper deliver the fabric alongside some instructions to the royal engineers. With Bong's direction, the engineers construct a special food delivery carriage that is properly insulated on all sides by the cloth. Meanwhile, Bong prepares an array of tasty meals and has the servants deliver them using the newly designed cabinet. The Grand Queen receives the meal hot and enjoys it, leaving no leftovers. Eventually, the engineers return to Bong and deliver the good news as the invention is proven to be a success. A few days later, the king organizes a huge banquet and invites delegates from all over the country. Unfortunately, the cooks get sick on the banquet day, and the royal kitchen is short-staffed. Bong notices this and decides to help out. She disguises herself as a dude to sneak out from the banquet and enters the kitchen. Bong discovers that the pantry is low on ingredients as the groceries which were meant to be delivered that day didn't make it. With limited resources, Bong has no choice but to get creative. The queen, alongside her housemates, prepares a simple but unique dish of potatoes. Bong peels and wraps the potato around a stick and deep fries it, making it crisp and crunchy. The guests are initially unhappy when they see the first dish as they expect something fancier for a royal banquet. However, as soon as they try the unique meal, their eyes shine in approval as they marvel at its taste. And thus, fast food was born. Bong's second dish is a bit more tasking as there's no meat in the kitchen. She creatively decides to use beans to make a veggie burger with a tomato relish on the side. Bong is pleased with her invention and names it McDonald's, inspired by the modern McDonald's itself. The dish, just like the potato serving, is a smash hit as the guests savor the mouth-watering cuisine. For the final meal, Bong creates a classic jelly dessert but with a twist. She writes special messages on the jelly sticks and calls them fortune jelly, as you get to read your fortune after you're done with the dessert. The guests enjoy the classic jelly and have fun reading their respective fortunes. Despite the initial hiccups, the banquet turns out to be a smash hit thanks to Bong's cooking. The Grand Queen, who also attended the banquet, is impressed by Bong's skills and finally asks her to make a request. Without any hesitation, Bong asks her to refill the lake. The Grand Queen grants her request and commands the servants to start working on the job. Sadly, as it is the 19th century, there are no advanced machines to aid this task, hence, the servants can only transport water manually with wooden buckets. The process is unbelievably slow as the servants make a long trip from the town's well to the lake. Bong is annoyed by this and swiftly comes up with a new method. She asks each servant to stay at one spot and simply pass the bucket from one person to the other. The people are pleased with the system as it makes the job easier and faster. They all continue the task and work on it patiently while Bong oversees the lengthy process. Several days pass, but the lake is yet to fill. Bong soon gets tired of waiting and becomes desperate. Luckily, a heavy downpour begins which slowly but gradually waters the lake. Bong is overjoyed by the weather change and dances ecstatically under the rain. A few hours later, the lake is filled, and Bong heads to the shores and signs her name on a cornerstone, after which she jumps into the lake and sinks underwater, just like she did at the start of the movie. When Bong wakes up, he is astonished to find himself in a hospital and sees an officer sleeping a few meters away from his bed. He quietly tries to slip out, but the officer wakes up, and a swift chase ensues. Bong manages to get away from him, but two more officers show up and corner him. Desperate, Bong jumps down from a high platform, escaping the men as he races down the street. He immediately heads to a public library and searches for a history book. There, he finds a publication about the Joseon dynasty and smiles, knowing that he has now become a part of history. However, his nostalgic trip down memory lane is swiftly interrupted when the chasing officers arrive at the library. Bong tries to escape once again, but the officers explain that they aren't there to arrest him. It turns out that the present has been changed due to his time travel to the Joseon era. Now he is not being chased by the police, instead, they are there to protect him, as Bong is now a whistleblower and exposed a high-ranking official for corruption. Bong rushes to a nearby computer and searches the web to confirm their claims. Soon after, he discovers that they are telling the truth, as history and the present world have indeed changed. The movie ends with Bong standing on a street as he relays a positive message on how a small change in the past can greatly affect the future, also the life lesson that meals are always better with Bong. Turn on alerts, like, and subscribe for more videos similar to this one. Thank you for watching.